Chronic pain, it affects millions of people. It's this silent epidemic, and it often leads us to a really dangerous paradox: opioids. They can be incredibly effective, but their risks are just devastatingly high. We've been using a sledgehammer to fix a problem that really needs a scalpel. So the big question is, what if we could find that scalpel? Well, the answer might actually lie in rewiring the brain itself.
Now, get this. This quote actually comes from patients who've had a very rare type of brain surgery for extreme pain. I mean, just think about what that means for a second. They still feel the physical sensation, right? But it just doesn't bother them anymore. It's like the raw signal is there, but the suffering is just gone.
And yeah, that really brings us to the whole point of this explainer. What if we could actually find the brain's suffering switch and, just turn it off without all the terrible collateral damage that comes with opioids? So let's dive in and follow the science. Let's see just how close we're getting to making that a reality. Okay, so first things first, we have to understand that pain isn't just one single thing. It actually has two really distinct components: the physical sensation and our emotional response to it. And this is a super important distinction that honestly gets lost in the conversation all the time. So let's break this down with a quick analogy, because it really helps. The sensation part, what scientists call nociception, that's just the ouch signal. It's like the fire alarm going off telling you your hand is on a hot stove. But the suffering part, what's called affective pain, that's the panic, the dread, the fear that comes after. It's that all-consuming, oh my God, this is awful feeling that can completely take over your life. You see, the alarm itself is useful, right? It's the constant, unending panic that's the real problem we're trying to solve.
So, who's the one deciding if we just get the warning or if we get the full-blown panic? Well, that's where the brain comes in. And your brain is not a passive listener here. There's this idea called the gate control theory. And it basically says the brain is an active gatekeeper. It can literally turn the volume of pain up or down. So the real battle against suffering, it's got to be fought right there, at the source, right where that volume knob is.
Okay, so if the brain's the command center, where exactly is this volume knob for suffering? Let's go ahead and zoom in on our prime suspect. So researchers have been able to zero in on one very specific region that really seems to be pulling all the strings when we talk about the emotional weight of pain. You could call it the headquarters for what makes pain so, well, unpleasant.
And here it is. It's called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC for short. This little part of the brain is absolutely the key. It's not where you feel the physical ouch, but it is where your brain decides how much that ouch actually matters, how much it should hurt you emotionally.
And check this out. Here's the critical clue. A whopping 70%, that's huge, of the key neurons in the ACC are just covered in something called mu-opioid receptors. Just think of these as tiny docking stations for drugs like morphine. This is no coincidence, folks. It's basically a giant flashing sign telling us the ACC isn't just involved in pain, it's the main target for our most powerful painkillers. Okay, but this brings up a massive challenge, right? How in the world do you objectively measure something as totally subjective as suffering? I mean, you can't exactly ask a lab mouse, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? To get actual, hard data, scientists needed a brand new tool. And this is where Lupe comes in. It stands for Light Automated Pain Evaluator. It's this incredible AI system that can literally watch a mouse and decode its subtle behaviors, sort of like reading the hidden language of its internal state to get an objective measurement of its suffering. And the way it works is pretty remarkable. First up, you've got high-speed cameras that capture every single tiny movement. Then, the AI gets to work tracking 20 different points on the mouse's body. And it's not just looking for one single thing, like licking a paw. No, instead, it's analyzing these really complex patterns of behavior over time. And it's by decoding those patterns that Lupe can figure out an underlying pain state. It's literally turning a subjective feeling into cold, hard, objective data. The results? Well, they're pretty striking. Let's take a look at what the AI flagged as pain state 4. So, healthy, totally uninjured mice, they almost never show this pattern of behavior. But after an injury, wow, they spend over a third of their time in this exact state. This was huge. For the very first time, a subjective feeling, suffering, became a real, measurable, objective number. That's a massive leap forward. All right, so now we've got the location. the ACC, and we've got the tool, Loop. Now it's time to connect the dots and find that smoking gun that proves how morphine really works its magic. To make all this even simpler to track, the researchers took all that complex behavioral data from Lupe and distilled it down into a single, really powerful number. They call it the Affective Motivational Pain Scale, or AMPS for short. You can basically think of it as a direct readout, a live meter of the mouse's suffering level. So here's the baseline. In a totally normal, uninjured mouse, the AMPS score is low. Makes sense. But if you give it a chronic nerve injury, that score shoots way, way up. So the data is confirming exactly what we'd expect. The animal is now in a state of significant ongoing suffering. All right, now for the real test. And here it is, the smoking gun. You give that same injured mouse a low dose of morphine, and just look at what happens to that AMP score. It absolutely plummets. Now, the mouse can still feel the physical sensation. Its reflexes are all still there, but its suffering, that's gone. This is the proof. It shows that morphine's real job is to quiet down that emotional pain circuit in the ACC. So, okay, the crucial point here is this. If we know exactly which cells in which part of the brain are responsible for suffering, and we know how morphine shuts them up, couldn't we just replicate that same effect, but with way more precision? And this, right here, is where the research shifts from just understanding pain to actually conquering it. So, instead of that morphine sledgehammer that just hits receptors all over the body, these researchers built a molecular scalpel. How? Well, they started by identifying the unique genetic signature of only those suffering neurons in the ACC. Then, they engineered a totally harmless virus to deliver a custom-made off switch that installs itself only in those very specific cells, nowhere else. And then, a simple designer drug can flip that switch whenever you need it, silencing only the circuit for suffering. And the results? I mean, they were just astonishing. In a model of chronic pain, this super-targeted gene therapy wasn't just as good as morphine at relieving the suffering, it was actually significantly better. This is a total mic drop moment for precision medicine. We're talking more effective relief with potentially way, way fewer side effects. Okay, let's just pause for a second and really think about the implications here. I mean, this approach targets suffering, not sensation. It's laser-focused on one tiny brain circuit. It completely avoids all those widespread effects that lead to addiction and overdose with opioids. In fact, the test showed something incredible. It was only reinforcing, meaning, desirable to the animals that were already in pain. That points to a super low risk of addiction. This is a complete paradigm shift. It really is. And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty tantalizing question. Are we looking at a future where we don't just numb pain with a pill, but where we can send a precise, targeted command straight to the brain's emotional centers and just turn suffering off? Based on this research, that future might be a whole lot closer than we think.